font?
Yeah.
I know, but
Are we ready? We're on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this special school board meeting of July 25th, 2017 to order. The time is 6:06 p.m. The purpose of today's meeting is to hold a public hearing to consider the adoption of the 2017-2018 tentative millage rates and the 2017-2018 tentative budget. At this time, we request that all cellular phones be turned off or put into the silent mode. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and also of the district's vision to be a world-class school system. Today's agenda includes presentation on the percent of increase or decrease over rollback rate, proposed millage, budget overview, proposed tentative budget, followed by a public hearing on the tentative budget, and then adoption of the required local effort millage, the basic discretionary millage, capital outlay millage, and a resolution determining revenues and millages, and resolution adopting the tentative millage rates for fiscal year 2017-2018. Fiscal year 18 tentative budget and related resolution adopting the tentative budget, acceptance of the 2017 certification of taxable value, scheduling of the final budget public hearing, comments from board members, board attorney, and superintendent. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. LaRiviere and seconded by
me.
Mrs. Giovanelli. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries 5-0. I will now turn this meeting over to Dr. Greg Adkins, Superintendent, and Dr. Amy Desimore, Chief Financial Officer, and Kelly Letcher.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, School Board and Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to bring to you this tentative budget. I will have to tell you that in the last something like 15 years of sitting on cabinets and going through these budgets, I really felt that the effort put forth in this one, the team really should be commended. They really spent a lot of time, made sure that the recommendations were well researched and in alignment with the board-approved strategic plan. So having said that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Desimores and Kelly Letcher and let them take us through the tentative budget.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Atkins and members of the board. As Dr. Atkins said, this tentative budget hearing really is the culmination of months of work and months of briefing and with you all in terms of understanding what the priorities were that we were putting in the budget and how exactly we were going to structure this budget to meet the priorities of Vision 2020 for the FY18 year. So we're happy to be with you today to discuss that. So this hearing is the first of two public hearings required under the Florida statutes to give the public an opportunity to provide input into the proposed millage levy and the budget for this fiscal year. The superintendent submitted his proposed tentative budget to you all on July 20th when you received a package of material which included information on the tentative budget. This hearing that we're having right now was advertised per law in the news press on July 21st. The second and final budget public hearing, by your approval, will be held on Tuesday, September 5th, here at the Lee County Public Education Center, and the notice of that meeting to the public will be through a direct mailing from the property appraiser's office. So that mail document is known as TRIM, or the Truth and Millage Notice, and it's sent as is required by law.
So the first thing we're going to discuss is the millage rollback rate. That's part of the trim requirements by law. Basically, the rollback rate is the millage rate in which, applied to the current year's tax roll, would produce the same dollar amounts that was received in the previous year. The calculated rollback rate this year is 6.5792. We are actually levying 6.679 mils, which is an increase of 1.52 mils from the rollback rate. The proposed millage rate for 27-18 school year is really a decrease of 0.310 mils from the previous year's millage rate of 6.989. The rollback rate of 6.5792, the required portion of that is a 0.72 decrease from the previous year. And that, the required portion is a 66% of the total millage that is being levied.
So what we want to point out there is, remember, with the total millage of 6.679, there are three different pieces of that, and the required local effort piece represents 66% of that total millage. So the largest part of the millage really is a requirement that is set forth by the state legislature through the FEFP. So just to remember that.
And here's the three pieces. We have a required local effort, which is the piece that is the 0.310 decrease from the previous year. The discretionary millage is the same. The capital mills is the same. So overall, there's a decrease of a 0.310. The new millage rate will generate $16.9 million over the previous years because of the increase in the tax roll.
Right. So when we look at those millages, as you can see, really the comparison between what our tax rate is and what the tax roll is, over a period of time, you see our millage, especially since 2014, has really been steadily going down, and that is because you'll see, conversely, through 2014 on through today, our tax roll has been going up. And that's generally what the FEFP will do, is as that tax roll goes up, we will see our millage rates float down. And so, as you can see through the comparison from last year, 6.989 was our total mills. Now to this year, 6.679, it's a millage decrease because that tax roll has decreased. So what this means for us in our budget is the tax roll is increasing, yes, but by large, we really don't see the total impact of the revenue that additional tax roll could bring in our operating funds, because that required local effort millage is squeezed down as that tax roll goes up. So it does have an impact on the budget based on how that millage is structured.
So what this actually means to our taxpayers is, if a homeowner had a home last year that was valued at $100,000, with the 8.1% increase, the value of their home would be $108,100. So their old rate last year, they would have been paying $698.90. This year, they would have paid $721.99. So they would have had an increase of $23.09. As you can see, when we do that for values of home from 100 to 200. If you have Save Our Homes, it's a little bit different because you have a 3% cap on the amount that can be taxed on your home. So on the next ones, there's $100,000 with the 3% increase of $103. Now remember, there's a $25,000 homestead exemption that would be removed from that as well. So a homeowner that was under Save Our Homes with a $100,000 home last year would have paid $524.18. This year would be paying $520.96. So they actually would have seen a decrease of $3.22.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Pacheco.
Any idea what percentage of residents or homeowners in Lee County fall under Save Our Homes?
So I don't know that. No, we could certainly find out what percentage that is. So we can ask the property appraiser and the tax collector that information to see what that is. So of course, these are just a couple of different scenarios based on our total tax roll increase, which was 8.1%, and then the increase of 3%, a person's property may increase or decrease, anywhere in between those numbers, below it or above it as well. So this is just kind of an average look at what that tax increase or decrease would be if you're under Save Our Homes, but we certainly can get that information.
Thank you.
Okay, so then based on those millages, the total proposed millage levy is as follows. Required local effort millage is 4.4310. Again, that millage is set by the state legislature through the FEFP and is required to be levied in order to receive any other state funds through the FEFP, and that amount to be raised is $348,696,080 through that millage. Basic discretionary, which is 0.748, gives us a total amount to be raised of $58,863,613, and our capital outlay millage of 1.5 mils gives us an amount to be raised of $118,042,004 for a total millage of 6.679 and a total amount to be raised of about $525.6 million. As outlined in the superintendent's proposed tentative budget on July 20th, the total proposed tentative budget for all funds is $1,475,962,110, as laid out in each of our 6 funds in the budget, as you see here. We're going to go through and talk a little bit about each one of those funds, what they represent, and the types of things in general that we do with those funds. So there are 6 different funds in the budget, and each of them are earmarked for very specific things. First of all, the general fund is the basic operating fund and is for overall the education of all students and our operating expenses. We've got debt service, which is just as it describes. It goes for principal and interest payments for the debt of the district. And then our capital budget is used to build schools, buy equipment, and provide maintenance for all of our facilities district-wide. Food service is self-sustaining, and that is the fund where we account for all of the revenues and expenses associated with breakfast and lunch for each student across the district. The special revenue funds include all of our federal funds, and each of those are earmarked for the specific purpose of the grant. And our internal service fund accounts for the insurance costs of the district, both property and casualty and health insurance. So we're going to go through each one of those funds just to give a little bit of an overview.
So our general fund, which is 59% of the total budget, or $873.7 million, it supports over 92,000 students. It's the increased resources were used for targeted initiatives. We targeted ESE this year, ESOL, our tiered level schools, and curriculum and reading. So those were the areas that we really targeted in the budget on this year. The FEFP, as you know, is at $689 million of the general fund. And we got a total per FTE increase of 1.38%, which, we worked really hard to get that. Initially, it was at like 0.39% is what they had done, and they had to go back to the drawing board, and they came back. So the tax roll, like we said before, is 8.11% increase. Of our operating revenues, 58.8% of that is from local dollars, and federal dollars is 0.59%, and our state is providing 40.61%.
Okay. I just want to point out, this is operating revenue, or the general fund. So many times we'll get the question, well, wait a minute, we thought you had more federal funds than that. In the general fund, a very small portion is federal. The other pieces of federal funding, of course, is in a different fund of the budget. So just to make sure to point that out.
So we get the question a lot of times, I know you all do as well, is where does the money go? Well, 69% of our general fund revenue or expense budget goes into the instruction or direct school expenses.
The food service budget is currently at $65.8 million. As we mentioned, that is the fund that accounts for all the revenue expenses dealing with breakfast and lunch for every child in the district. And also beginning last year, we implemented a supper program as well. We have, I believe, 15 schools at this point that have a supper program, and our goal is to continue to add more this year. That's another meal that will help feed some of our children who are very much in need. And so we look forward to having that as one of the initiatives in food service this year. Of course, breakfast will continue at no additional cost to any of the parents. In other words, when kids come to school, they do not pay for breakfast. Lunch prices remain the same for this year, including for those schools that have to pay. Most of our schools are under the community eligibility program, and that also remains in effect for one school was added, which was our new high school for this year, Bonita Springs High School. So community eligibility remains in effect. Special revenue funds, now this is the fund that accounts for most of our federal grants. Title I, IDEA, and TIF were the major federal grants that we have in the budget for this year. We have in our tentative budget, that fund is set at $55.4 million. That is not all of our federal grants. We will continue to recognize and put them in the budget as they come in. So you'll see at the final budget, when we come to you for the final budget approval, that number will be more at that point. Our capital funds, which is a subject that we've talked about quite a little bit together, $285.4 million is where the capital budget sits this year at our tentative time. Local property taxes, or that 1.5 mils that we had discussed before in terms of what we're asking approval to levy for this fiscal year, is the sole substantial source of revenue within the capital fund. So because of that, we do plan to take on debt for new schools in our plan that we have opening over the next 5 years, and there are 6 in the plan. And then there's other major focus in there for maintenance and renovations of our existing buildings, and of course those continue to age. As we add new schools, all of our other schools continue to get older, and so the maintenance costs associated with those will be handled within the capital fund as well. Debt service fund, now the revenue within debt service fund, $58.5 million for the FY18 year. All of the revenue from debt service comes as a transfer from our capital fund. So all of the revenue that we're pulling in for capital, basically that 1.5 mil, some of that gets pulled into the debt service fund in order to separately account for the principal and interest payments of the debt of the district. We will add additional payments probably in this fiscal year for the additional debt that we take on when we begin to build our new high school MMM in the East Zone. So as far as our statutory debt capacity, we have discussed that before, that the district is allowed by statute to use as much as 75% of the money that we raise with our 1.5 mil for principal and interest payments of debt. We are at 51.1% according to that statutory capacity. You all have discussed before that you'd like to stay closer to 50% of that money, and so we're at 76.7% of that limitation. And of course, the reserves are used to protect the financial position of the district. Right now, we have 2 reserves out there in the budget, the contingency and board priorities. That represents 5.5% of the new revenue we have coming into the general fund for this fiscal year.
So the next thing I want to talk about is the growth increment. As you all know, that is the portion of the discretionary millage, or the .748 mils that we're using to help with our capital needs. The .748 mils it stays the same. So as the tax roll increases, it provides an increase over the previous year. So we use that part of the increase, and that is moved over to the capital to help with the capital. One thing to remember is that still is part of the total FEFP potential. So it is part of the $689 million that the state gives us as our potential. Doing that, as you all know, there are risks and there are benefits to that. Some of the risks are listed here. One thing I wanted to point out as well is that right now, part of that 4.4 million increase is already taken up by charter schools. So some of that, we have to, by law, give it to charter schools. So about 569,000 of that already is given to charter schools, and then we're using it, we're also doing the incremental increase part here and not decreasing it for that. And of course, prolonged use in this, of doing this is going to have an effect on the general fund as well.
So overall, our school district budget, as you all know, supports 121 schools, and we are expecting over 92,000 students for next year if we meet our FTE projections, and we fully expect that we will based on the traffic that we've seen over this summer. It supports, of course, the initiatives of the state, but most importantly, it supports our district's vision and mission, and it's centered on student achievement and all of the objectives and goals that we have inside of Vision 2020. And so there was really a laser focus this year in trying to align those dollars with the things that we thought would most impact the goals of Vision 2020 and most impact the effect or most impact the effort for student achievement for next year. So so based on that information, we of course respectfully submit our budget to you in representation of the superintendent and in support of the mission, the students, and the employees of Lee County School District, as well as our citizens. So we await any questions that you all have related to that budget, and of course, our tonight's actions, or what the superintendent will be asking you all to do, would be to adopt all the proposed millages as discussed today, adopting the tentative budget, and then the resolutions related to those.
Thank you, Dr. Desimore and Ms. Letcher. Board members, any questions or comments at this time?
I have a quick question for you, Dr. Desimores. Can you go back to the slide where it talked about the statutory percentage that we're allowed to charge for capital, right there?
Yes.
All right, so we as a board have said we want to be at 50%. And you're saying that we're at 76.7% of that 50%? I don't need these numbers right now. I just,
Yes.
if you could
That's
tell
what we're
me at
yes.
some point in the future, what is the difference between 76.7% and 100% of that 50% where the board wants to be?
Okay, so
Does
you
that
want to
make
know,
sense?
yeah, you want to know just the dollar amount of what that difference is?
Correct.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, anything else? Okay, the next item on the agenda is public hearing. Oh,
Ms. Morgan had her hand up.
I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan?
May I, I'm sorry, just before we move on to that, I can really tell you that now. So, yeah, so right now, the transfer that we're doing for debt, based on the tentative budget now, this could change a little bit based on the new debt service schedules we get, and you'll see that in the final. It's about 45.2 million, but then half of the millage that we're getting is about 59 million, so the difference is about 14 million.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
We put that information out there so anybody who's studying the budget and the taxpayers can also see that on the last page of our capital plan within the budget book. They can see, we lay out what that millage looks like and what that percentage is. Just reading it without an explanation, they probably wouldn't exactly know what that meant, but it is there.
Thank you.
Page 48.
I'm sorry, there was another question.
I'm going to wait till board member comments. Sorry, Mary.
Oh, okay.
No, that's okay. All right, thank you, Mrs. Morgan. Okay, then, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing. So we will now recess this special school board meeting and open public hearing to consider the adoption of the tentative proposed millage rates and the tentative budget for 2017-18. Dr. Atkins, will you please continue by stating your recommendations?
Yes, let me start out with the first recommendation. Recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2017-2018 tentative proposed required local effort millage of 4.431 mills with a proposed amount to be raised of $348,696,080. The RLE millage includes the basic RLE of 4.413 and a prior period adjustment millage of 0.018. Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2017-2018 tentative proposed basic discretionary millage of 0.748 mills with a proposed amount to be raised of $58,863,613. Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt a 2017-2018 tentative proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $118,042,004. The total millage will equal 6.679 mills with a total amount to be raised of $525,601,697. The total millage rate will be levied exceeds the rollback rate. It is an increase in the rollback rate of 1.52%. Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the resolution determining revenues and millages levied and the resolution adopting the tentative millage rates for the fiscal year 2017-2018. Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the tentative budget and related resolution adopting the tentative budget for the 2017-2018 school year as follows. General operating, $873,733,673. Special revenue budget of $121,264,366. Debt service budget of $58,534,821. Capital outlay budget of $285,358,136. Internal service budget of $137,071,114 for a total tentative budget of $1,475,962,110. Recommend that the Lee County School Board accept the 2017 certification of the taxable value for Lee County, Form DR 420S, and authorize the superintendent to complete and execute form. Recommend the Lee County School Board schedule a public hearing on the final 2017-2018 millage levies and final budget for the 2017-2018 school year for Tuesday, September 5th, 2017, at a specially scheduled board meeting to begin at 5:05 p.m. in the Lee County Public Education Center boardroom.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these matters. The time allowed for comment is 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone in the right section of the auditorium who would like to address the board? Anyone in the left section of the auditorium? Seeing none, I will now close this public hearing and reconvene the special school board meeting of July 25th, 2017. The board will now consider each of the superintendent's recommendations. Dr. Atkins, please restate your recommendations individually, allowing the board the opportunity to vote before moving on to the next one.
Okay, first recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2017-2018 tentative proposed required local effort millage of 4.431 mills with a proposed amount to be raised of $348,696,080. The RLE millage includes basic RLE of 4.413 and a prior period adjustment millage of 0.018.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendations. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Morgan, seconded by Mrs. LaRiviere. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next recommendation, Dr. Atkins.
Recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2017-2018 tentative proposed basic discretionary millage of .748 mills with a proposed amount to be raised of $58,863,613.
Thank you. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. LaRiviere,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Third recommendation.
Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2017-2018 tentative proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $118,042,004. The total millage will equals 6.679 mils, with a total amount to be raised of $525,601,697. Total millage rate to be levied exceeds the rollback rate. It is an increase in the rollback rate of 1.52%.
Thank you. Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Morgan. Second. Seconded by Mrs. LaRiviere. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Number 4.
Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt a resolution determining revenues and millages levied, and the resolution adopting the tentative millage rates for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. LaRiviere.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt a tentative budget and related resolution adopting the tentative budget for the 2017-2018 school year as follows. General operating, $873,733,673. Special revenue budget of $121,264,366. Debt service budget, $58,534,821. Capital outlay budget, $285,358,136. Internal service budget, $137,071,114, for a total tentative budget of $1,475,962,110.
Board members, you've heard Dr. Atkins' recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, sorry. Pam.
Moved by Mrs. Morgan and seconded by Mrs. LaRiviere. Any discussion on this? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Next recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board accept the 2017 certification of taxable value for Lee County, Form DR420S, and authorize the superintendent to complete and execute the form.
Board members, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. LaRiviere,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Final recommendation?
Next and final recommendation, recommend that the Lee County School Board schedule a public hearing on the final 2017-2018 millage levies and final budget for the 2017-2018 school year for Tuesday, September 5th, 2017, at a specially scheduled board meeting to begin at 5:05 p.m. in the Lee County Public Education Center boardroom.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Patrica and seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda are comments from board members, the board attorney, and the superintendent. Mrs. Morgan.
Yeah, first of all, I want to, oops, that's right, I don't need to move this. Just want to, Dr. Atkins has already made the comment. I am very appreciative of the staff effort to create a framework and a process for aligning the budget with the Vision 2020 goals. I think this has been a very difficult exercise. I think it's probably been a fruitful exercise, and I think we're beginning to see the fruits of your efforts, really, your efforts to put the money where it matters for kids. And so I just want to say that I am very grateful that you put out this effort in in what I consider to be a negative environment for funding public education. I think this is a really good budget for moving us forward in terms of our goals for 2017-18. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. Mrs. LaRiviere?
And just a thank you to each department for all that you have done to try to squeeze as much power as you could out of every dollar. Please know that it has not gone unnoticed. So just again, kudos and thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Patrica?
I have no comments.
No comments. Mrs. Giovanelli? No comments. And I'll just echo my colleagues. This is an excellent budget. We appreciate the hard work. It definitely takes a team to do the work of such a large organization, and we appreciate you. Mr. Martin?
No comments this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Atkins?
Well, just that I agree, it is absolutely a team effort, and I appreciate the support of this team. There has been a lot of input on the part of this board into this process, in my opinion, and it's all extremely well intended and did have a lot to do with the shaping of this budget. So I appreciate working with a board that is that interested and committed to doing the good work of the district. So I thank you for the support of this budget, which I consider collectively our budget. And I really do believe it's in the best interest of kids with the dollars that we have. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership. At this point, having no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Patrica,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Giovanelli. All in favor?
Aye.
This special meeting is adjourned.